All right, everyone. Welcome to this weekly Sidereal Astrology forecast. This is for November 13th to the 19th, 2017. And this video is for Sidereal Astrology. If you are new to the channel, definitely check out the link down below. We're using the actual size of the constellations. So we're going to start this reading first looking at it collectively, and then you can go down to the comment section and check out your sign-specific video. But generally for all of us, we do have this new moon on Saturday. So as we approach Saturday, this lowering of energy, ending phase of the last lunar cycle, and a new moon in Libra. So new beginnings with this whole sort of shift of focus we've had probably for about the past week or two, depending on when you're watching this, in terms of focusing on cooperating with others, right? Finding harmony, give and take, right? This mutuality that Libra helps us develop. So this is all the new beginning here in terms of integrating these new qualities into ourselves and into our life. We have a lot of aspects this week, actually. On Monday, we have Venus conjoining up to Jupiter, suggesting maybe some opportunities with relationships. Mercury squaring up to Neptune on Monday as well. Perhaps some uncertainty, which does require some faith and trust. By the time we get to Thursday, though, Venus trines Neptune, maybe some easygoingness in relationships. And then right before the new moon on Saturday, we have Venus going into Libra, seeing the value of this whole cooperation and harmony stuff, and Mercury in good aspect with Mars, which could be some directness in communications, and the week ends with Mars squaring up to Pluto on Sunday, suggesting a bit of maybe tension or ego clash, something that we can do to be more non-attached with the things we want in life. So a lot going on, but let's go ahead and break all of this down here in more detail. All right, so let's break down this week one by one. I do want to start off by looking at where everything is coming into the week. Again, the sun is in Libra, so as we have been focused on this cooperative energy, I think that's certainly the backdrop to our focus for the whole week. Coming into the week, we still have Venus and Mars in Virgo. Still a great time for getting in touch with personal development, our personal growth, and all in all, just striving towards improving things in our life, whether it's about ourselves, our environment, etc. And of course, Mercury is in deep Scorpio, so our minds are definitely deeper at this time. Could be maybe facing some fears this week, as it was last week, in terms of communication, in terms of thinking, how we think about things, right? So being willing to go deep and to think deeply with vulnerability and to communicate perhaps with vulnerability can be a great way of working with that Mercury in Scorpio. So let's break down the week in terms of these aspects. Like I said, there's a lot going on astrologically, mostly on the easier side of things. As you can see, there's a lot of blue aspects, with the most important event being on Saturday, being the new moon. So it's good to look at this week as a dying down energy. It's an ending phase. It's like winter, right? It's this time of reflection and internalization for what will be spring around the corner, metaphorically speaking, of the new moon, right? So new beginnings, Saturday, going into next week. It's subtle, but as we go into next week, this whole new perspective and new beginning in our life. So coming into this week, though, on Monday, Venus over Jupiter does suggest a bit of buoyancy in relationships, maybe a bit of inspiration. So if you are feeling that inspiration, really good to go and connect to those relationships in your life. And for some of you, maybe forming some new relationships. And this is, of course, all relationships. So not just romantic, but also business, family relationships, friends, things like this. Really, really good positive energy for that, for those one-to-one connections. And also just learning more about what we value in life in general and really connecting to the things that we do enjoy in life. So with that, though, on Monday, Mercury does square up to Neptune. So there is this perhaps uncertainty or this fog or this haze that comes into the picture. So anything we can do on Monday that is really about being present, I think is key. Surrendering what's outside of our control, having trust, doing spiritual activities, meditation, yoga, prayer, things like this can really help balance the mind. Because if you do notice on Monday, Perhaps the mind is trying to escape, maybe through dreams, illusions, things like this. But through that presence, through that attention to the mind, it helps us be at peace and work with this constructively, which is bringing in more of this receptive energy into our mind and our perspective of things. So the moon is going to be in Virgo all the way up until the new moon in Libra. So all the way up until about Friday, the moon will be in Virgo. So this whole work week, I think really good for, again, striving towards improvement. This is likely a backdrop to the week. So personal growth is always really good with Virgo, but seeing what can be fixed in your life perhaps, or organized or improved. What can you focus on the details of? Get into that meticulous energy, and I think that'll be a really good way of working with our emotions and our feelings in terms of feeling rooted when we're approaching life with this improvement-oriented perspective. So that's coming into the week, and when we get to Thursday, we have some new aspects. Venus will be trining up to Neptune. So there is this easygoingness in relationships. In fact, Venus is very well aspected this week. So a bit of receptivity, fantastic. A bit of gratitude, fantastic, about relationships, but maybe also about the things that you have materially in your life. And just really getting into this more accepting nature, right? I think it's going to come very natural. I think it's a very good time for enjoyment, connecting, even imagination and creativity. That sort of receptive energy, fantastic with that trine. Now, at the same time, we do have the sun trining Chiron, so there could be actually this rejuvenation with our self-expression, actually. Just feeling a bit like we can be ourselves, and just feeling a bit like the wounds that we may have are just easy to work with. We're just more expressive, more creative, more lighter, more playful. It's definitely a good combination there with those two trines going on. All right, so that's Thursday. And then as we get into Friday, we do have some sign changes. We have Venus going into Libra. So this will likely be the shift of starting to see a little bit more about what we value in terms of this whole focus of relationships. Again, this is more about connecting, though, in a way that's really about mutuality. Because relationships, of course, are about two parties, right? It is about coming together. It is about finding what are our needs, but also what are our partner's needs or the other person's needs, and coming together. So we're going to start to see the value of this and want to connect in this way of mutuality with this transit of Venus, which is very nice. She naturally rules Libra. And so that's a nice setup for the new moon on Saturday. Now, I do also want to mention that midweek, Mercury will be shifting into Ophiuchus. It's very much like the Scorpio energy, like I was saying about the depth. But we could, the second half of the week, maybe start to think a little bit more in terms of healing specifically. Healing our communication, right? Healing our wounds in terms of communication. Healing our wounds in terms of our minds or our routine, our practical stuff. So our mind is going towards healing, and anything you can do to sort of actualize that, I think will be great the second half. All right, so speaking of Mercury, though, on Friday before the new moon on Saturday, Mercury is going to be forming a sextile with Mars. So on that day and maybe the surrounding days, there's just this opening for a bit of directness with that communication. So while it's deep, while it's maybe about healing, I think there's a very good opening for taking some initiative, taking some action. And there's maybe just a bit of fire behind the mind, right? Like could be really good for writing, learning, again, sharing, exchanging, things like this. It's not a given, but it is an opening for that, which is what sextiles are, sort of opening to walk through that door if we choose to. But it's certainly available to combine that active energy with communication and our minds. All right, so then Friday, or rather Saturday, is the new moon. And it is going to be just forming a couple minor aspects, a trine up to Chiron and a square to the North Node. I'll be making a separate video on this. We'll, of course, look at where this is in your personal chart here in just a couple minutes. But yes, new moon in Libra. New beginnings with this whole shift of how can we give and take? How can we cooperate? Find this harmony. New matters perhaps pertaining to justice and morality as well for some of us in our life. And another good way of working with this is because, again, this is a more subtle energy. and the energies are dying down throughout the week, and this will be the lowest energy sort of time. Really good to listen to see where we can bring in this energy, right? Harmony, and also a bit of balance in our life, right? What are some things that are in our life maybe out of balance? How can we bring some balance back to that? Really, really good time for that. So the week ends with Mars squaring up to Pluto, which is a challenging aspect. We'll likely be feeling it Saturday and Sunday. But there's always a constructive way of working with it. And in this case, if you are feeling a bit of ego clash, if you're feeling like your personal needs aren't being met, or if it's more on the relationship side, since we have so much of that going on, maybe someone else, maybe someone else is, doing that sort of power dynamic or something, but maybe it's triggering us. Maybe we're reacting to it. So good nonetheless to practice non-attachment, right? Really practice non-attachment to the things that we want, even if it's for another person, even if it's for relationships. But yes, this is the key with Pluto. This is what Pluto helps us do. And with Mars, it really does feel very deep. It feels very instinctual. It's like our egos, it's our self, and it can feel like it's death if we don't, get this need met or control this thing or whatever it is. So really good time to set the glass down, so to speak, take a step back, practice non-attachment to outcome. We obviously have attachments in life to things that are important to us, but there's non-attachment to outcome. How does it end up? What will the result be? If we're okay with whatever the outcome might be, there's a tremendous freedom in that, right? A tremendous liberation, and that's what Pluto helps us do. And in this case, transforming the ego so that we are more non-attached. So, and then on a minor note, Mercury is going to be trining up to the North Node on this Sunday. And so there could be some things we're learning about our life path, just as a side note. And the moon will be in Scorpio on Sunday as well, adding to the depth, right? So I think it will be a really good day and going into Monday for being more aware of the deeper dimensions of life within ourself, accepting the deeper dimensions of ourself and of life, and through that also continuing the healing process, which will be the moon going into Ophiuchus early next week. All right, so let's look at all of this here for the individual signs. Go down to the comment section. There's timestamps or actually links next to each of the different signs. I do recommend watching this for your sun, moon, and ascendant sign. If you don't know your moon or ascendant, there's also a birth chart calculator down there as well. All right, so I'll see you in those individual videos.